we have a little bit of time now set aside for questions. I wonder if there's anyone in the room who has a question. Uh, while you're thinking about it, is there a question that we could take from online?
So it's a question from Kirsten for Jenny. She said, I note the document refers to intersectionality. Did you look at the data of women and girls that you spoke to understand the intersectional differences in their responses?
I don't think, not the data as such. I think the process was very much around kind of coming up with a set of ideas, testing them, and then retesting them, and that the process was kind of cumulative. So I think in terms of data, I mean, what do you mean in terms of data? Do you mean like data as in facts and figures, or?
Kirsten, you might need to add this into the into the chat if that's okay.
Yeah, that was.
Sorry, I'm double guessing, Kirsten.
Yeah, no, I mean, in
forgive
terms
me if
of,
I'm wrong. But yes, so in terms of, yes, they're females, but
yeah,
like you've had the young females and the
yeah,
non-binary people.
yeah.
Who were the others?
So that was, yeah. So in terms of it was more about like how we directed the spaces that we went into to work in. So obviously, Tower Hamlets is a kind of very diverse area, and so I was just focusing more on kind of working with groups. So, for example, going to the women's group in Bethnal Green, which was a kind of a multicultural kind of space, and making sure that we'd kind of covered a number of different groups, rather than I didn't want to. I didn't want the way that the project worked. I suppose I didn't want it to become like I couldn't ask people on the street to fill out forms and things like that. So it was a kind of way of yeah. I don't know if that answers the question.
It was to see, for example, if there were if the disabled people, for example, had different requirements from different protected characteristics.
Okay, that was something that I think came up with the disability, because I think it was the focus was on gender, and I don't feel like I did cover disability within that as a kind of there just wasn't the resources within the project to kind of focus on that sort of breadth of experience. And I think, yeah, I don't think it did cover that. And my sort of recommendation was that there needed to be another specific piece of work that did look specifically at disability, because I felt that although you could say, okay, if you look at the experience of women and girls, then to an extent you might understand difference in ability through, I don't know, through talking to someone who's pushing a pram, or through, this kind of thing. But I didn't feel that there was enough resource within the project to be able to say confidently that this represents disability as well. So this is why I guess the title of the document is about gender inclusive design, not inclusive design per se, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Hello, I think you had a question. We get the one will do.
Hello, and thank you so much for this very interesting presentations. I'm just a quick introduction. I'm Daniela Melandri. I'm the coordinator of that little project, and so we really have a lot of common things to share with what you have just mentioned. And I'll try to give two questions for whoever wants to answer. Well, one is around the data. We mentioned it, and I really like the sentence at the very beginning. Data are important, but voices actually are more important. But in our experience, we always said data do shape the world, do tell the world, and then they shape the world. So when you have biased data or you don't have the data, in a way you're bringing a lot of people out of that equation of voices, and vice versa. And the voice reflects the data, as you just mentioned. So I was just wondering to ask the speakers how did you kind of approach that? And another couple of things, and then I'll leave the answer is one thing I was wondering is the concept of beauty is sometimes not part of the conversation of inclusion, but actually is a very, very important part, because the cities, as we know, they are beautiful when they're rich, they are neglected when they're poor, as simple as it is. Nature-based solutions are in very specific areas of cities, they are not everywhere, and actually, so I think there is, in our experience at least, more to say about the concept of beauty and how beauty enables safety as well, accessibility, inclusivity, and all of that. And last but not least, and I'll stop here, is when we talk about co-participatory processes, we talk at the beginning. So collecting ideas. But there is an entire process around co-maintenance, which is at the end. So, for instance, in our project, we have done something very similar to what you have done in Spain. We have these 5 wonderful sites in these 5 cities that Caroline showed before. And we had $1 million from the commission. Wonderful. Now, all the millions are gone. Everything is done. And how do we make sure that sites remain in that way and actually is part of the community as it was thought to be? Sorry, 3 very different questions, but just because they are so much aligned to the experience we had in the last 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. Neil, would you like to start responding to any one of those questions that Daniela has thrown into the air for us?
I think I'd take the data and the aesthetics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what you find is if somebody wants to get their own way, they just skew the data to get what they want, and then they come out with a absolutely fantastic graph and statistics, and it shows that yes, the community wants this. And that's why we say data is important, but you have to, and as both of the other speakers did, they actually went into the communities and asked them what they wanted, and the way that they did it is they did it through engaging with the indigenous people who were in the communities, regardless of race, creed, color, gender, and then they collated the information and found, I suppose it was also based on economics, which was the most viable one to actually to go ahead with, and then you put that forward. And that's why we say data is good, but voice is the main driving force behind it. And I just reiterate, you can do anything with data. Data can be, you can get this data and skew this to whatever you want. So in my view, data is good, but you have to listen to the core people, the indigenous people of wherever you're building in the world. That will be the guiding factor of how your project outcomes is. And then the aesthetics is, you're totally right about how people tend to, at the moment we're in a situation where I was brought up and I was looking at 15-minute cities. And I thought to myself, who thought of 15-minute cities? And then you read the information about it, and I'm thinking, the more I look at it, yes, it's a good idea in principle, but that the 15-minute city for the underrepresented person, the people who of migration into the community, that their 15-minute city will have, all right, they don't want cars, they don't want this, they don't want that, but the 15-minute city of the more affluent, economically viable person, they're still going to have their Ferraris running around, they're still going to have their Lamborghinis running around, because their 15-minute city is not going to be the same. So what I'm saying is what we have to do is not listen to those people who have these detractionary voices, and go for yes, we came up with the end, something which was quite aesthetically pleasing, but that's what the community wanted. And we realized like digitalization is the main driving force that connects community, as we've found through the internet and everything else. So everybody's into it. So what we came up with a solution, and what people come up with a solution, is it has to be aesthetically pleasing. It has to incorporate sustainability and greenery into the core of the actual project, and that gives you the aesthetical perception, and hopefully the aesthetics will cross over all interracially, intersectionally, barriers, etc., etc.
Thank you. Constantina, would you like to say something?
Yeah. No, I would like to say that, okay, regarding data, there's always a dilemma between quantitative or qualitative data. So in our case, we found ourselves many times in front of municipalities asking for as many people as possible participating in these processes, no? But we don't feel the same. We are not aligned with that. We believe that the importance is not the number, but the quality of people who are there, people who are interested in the process, no, in the project, and people who have sensibilities, people who will continue after the end of the project. They will continue running, no, worrying about the place, activating the place, etc., etc. So it's not about the quantity. Okay, so this is the first one, and then about the data, how we collect it. Firstly, we make the analysis in our case. Like the technical part as architects, and then we validate it with the community. First of all, to understand a bit the context, no, and then to work with them. And this analysis comes with the territorial one, the social, the economic, etc., etc. So we're trying to have an integral, a holistic approach to this. And then I was thinking about the evaluation. In each session, once we are done, we give them like forms, like questionnaires, where they will collect information about the gender, if they're taking care of other people, how they found the session, if their voice was heard or not, etc., etc. So this information, it's not to publish it afterwards, but it helps us to improve the process. Okay, so the next one will be better. No? We will adapt it to that community because it's different from the other one. So this is about data. And then I was thinking about the beauty. The beauty comes with the place and the community that lives there. No, they have different sensibilities. So in that example of Montornès, the areas at the foot of the mountain. So that was the identity also of the place. So people, when they were thinking about beauty, they were thinking about natural materials. They were thinking about aquifers, permeability, green, etc., etc. So beauty comes with the place, I think. And about the co-maintenance, what we are doing is creating follow-up commissions, like 1 or 2 sessions before the end of the process. So once we are done, once we exit the project, they will continue afterwards. They will go behind the authorities in order to put pressure and continue with the project. So I think I covered the 3 topics, no?